In this week's episode, I have my favorite day of the month and my astro interesting day of the month for January, part 1. Jupiter in Pisces. Cue the peace train. I believe. What do you believe in? Also on January 1st, the Sun trine Uranus. Innovate and Invigorate. This is my astrologically interesting day, part 1. To hear more, tune in to this week's episode of Astrological Intentions.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Astrological Intentions. I am your host, Alex Reevy, along with the Christmas Quantiner, Sandy Reevy.
That's a doozy on the very last podcast of the year.
And it is episode 179, December 27th. Let's get right into it. In the transits, we have Tuesday, December 28th, Jupiter ingress Pisces.
Cue peace train.
Wednesday, December 29th, Mercury conjunct Venus retrograde.
Need to say.
And Mars sextile Saturn.
Getting serious.
Then Thursday, December 30th, Mercury conjunct Pluto.
Getting to the bottom.
And Sandy's astrologically interesting day, Saturday, January 1st, Sun trine Uranus.
Innovate, Invigorate.
And Sunday, January 2nd, Mercury ingress Aquarius.
Absorb ideas.
And the new moon in Capricorn.
At 12 degrees Capricorn, step firm on new ground.
Then no talisman times finished or coming up. However, we do have a new talisman of the month we will announce soon. And on the horizon, we have many things. Don't forget the orbit necklaces are 20% off for the remainder of December. The holiday trunk show, the astrology webinar, Astrology Forecast, and the very special talisman ceremony that is coming up January 15th for the Venus heliacal rise. Then in our house, Sandy and I are going to discuss a recent and tough decision about our holiday plans. So stay tuned for this episode of Astrological Intentions.
And so you finally know you control where you go.
Merry Christmas, Quantino. I had to.
Well, and I think that's the funniest one yet.
Yeah.
And that makes total sense. Everybody will hear about why and the scenario of
the holiday plan.
That, yeah. And have you heard about the quarantini?
No. Are you going to have some?
I don't like martinis. And it's so funny because I do like vodka, but why do they not? It's the shape of the glass, I think. They just don't do well for me.
Oh, it's definitely the shape, for sure.
Yeah, it's got to be.
So I want to go direct to all you listeners. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. I did receive a message from one of our listeners and subscribers, astrology reading subscribers, because she received her holiday gift bag.
Yeah.
Gift bag. And she said, "How sweet and kind of you both. Thank you. A very tender gesture. Thank you for all of the stardust and starlight you both have sprinkled on my life this year. Looking forward to the next year. So many blessings and love and sweetness of this season."
Oh,
so
that's nice.
Just a really wonderful, heartfelt email that it's just gold. It's gold.
Spread, share, blend, connect, charge forward with your, that whole forward thinking. We've had to go, wasn't it Oprah that was like the paying it forward, right? Like the years and years of that. And now we've been like, retrace your steps, go backwards, right? With going into your holes and going into your homes. So it's time to get that back going. And we'll talk about my favorite day of the whole month.
Yeah, well, we'll start off with it. So in the transits, your favorite day is Tuesday, December 28th. It's our first transit of the week, Jupiter ingress Pisces.
This is at 10:09 p.m. Central Time. And so Tuesday night, as you're prepping for bed, why don't you ask the lady in the box that's probably in your house somewhere.
Yeah.
It's very close to your name, Alexandra.
Right.
And sometimes she'll speak when I
Well, even
call
if we
you.
say it on the podcast, it'll probably cue other people's. So we don't want to
that's
say.
funny. Oh, that's even funnier. But ask this music box in the corner to play Peace Train. I want everyone, and I can't play it here.
From Cat Stevens.
Yeah, Yusuf. Alex won't let me play it here because we'll get, what is that? Black.
It's a copyrighted song, so we can't record it.
I wish I could pay him lots of money so I can play it here.
Okay, it's
So
going to be a lot.
Let me try and get a hold of him right now.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is cue the Peace Train. This Jupiter into Pisces, my favorite day of the whole year, because even when Jupiter went into Pisces in April, May, and part of June, gave us a foreshadowing or a wink wink about here's what type of situations you can expect when I come back in to Pisces for the entirety of the degrees.
Okay.
Jupiter only went into 0 degrees Pisces, 1, 2, and at 2 degrees Pisces retrograded and moved back into Aquarius. And so on this day, he moves into Pisces and stays there. Now he's going to move pretty quick. He's going to get to the end of Pisces, move into Aries in, when was that? May? May 11th. And he will dip back into the last 2 degrees, like November and December of 2022.
Right.
But, I believe. What do you believe in, Alex? What would this Jupiter and Pisces?
Santa Claus, of course. Really, like it's that mysticism, it's the fantastical, it's the storytelling, and that Peace Train. It reminds me a lot of the holidays because everyone's got a little bit of extra joy in their pocket. There's this giving atmosphere and a very humble receiving. And yeah, I think, that jolliness of Jupiter and the, wholesomeness of Pisces.
Yeah, I believe in sunshine. And probably that's because my Jupiter sits in Leo right on my ascendant, which is the reason why people call me that optimistic astrologer. I did not title that myself.
And now that go ahead.
But it's a wonderful reprieve. Whether it's real or not, whether it stays forever or not, we all deserve some sort of peace. And, it is the title of my retreat.
Yep.
That's coming up in just a bit. And because out on the edge of darkness, there rides a peace train. Oh, peace train, take this country. Come take me home again. Oh, peace train, sounding louder. Glide on the peace train. Now, I've been crying lately, thinking about the world as it is. Why must we go on hating? Why can't we live in bliss? So this to me is that whole coming out. And I want to make a comment here again. I want to bring in a little bit of world news. Because with Jupiter going into Pisces, on the day, and I may be mistaken on the day, I think it was April 17th, that Jupiter went into Pisces for just a period of time earlier in 2021 here. And on that same day, we got the news that the CDC and the World Health Organization had reduced the mask mandate, eliminated, I should say, the mask mandate. And we could come out of our houses for the first time in that year plus, and gave us the sense of hope and inspired intuition about finally this is over, right?
Right,
and we
and
can
optimism.
Go out, the forward thinking of there are no borders. Neptune doesn't have any, Jupiter, who is the ruler of Pisces,
it expands.
Doesn't have any borders, and so all of a sudden, Jupiter going into his own domicile of Pisces with no borders means you can just roam and go with the flow, and that was very inspiring for us all. And sure enough, we did. Boom to boom, we all went. And the day that Jupiter went back had retrograded and then went back into Aquarius, masks back on. So with that, and I couldn't predict.
We're going back into Pisces.
And, the astrologers did have to see what this really meant for the world. And now that here it comes again, it's like, you know what? I gave you a little foreshadowing back in the spring. I'm coming back, and in fact, I think I did call that area of when I was on the podcast, I'll be back. Right. And sure enough, here he is on Tuesday, the 28th, as we're heading to bed, and gives us this sense of maybe things are where there are no borders anymore. We can move out into the world. Now, the news piece here I want to bring up is, all of this new heightened infection rate and, numbers climbing for positive, test results. That, and I kept watching the news and watching my feeds and watching my skimmed, as you know, I listen or watch,
read.
Meaning read.
Oh, yeah.
I watch my phone and read it. And sure enough, 2 nights ago, before I went to bed, I checked again. And there is a report, hard to find because I've looked for it since, that South Africa, who had maybe not the first reported case of Omicron.
They discovered it, yeah.
That where it was discovered, where it really started, like kind of rampant, has already reported a drastic drop. And they said something about, I can't find it anymore. They said that as this thing spiked up so quickly, it dropped faster.
Equally as quickly.
Well, it dropped faster than it did to grow.
Oh.
So because that was the first area in the world, and then it went from there, that's what I was watching for. Yeah. I wanted to hear something like that.
Right.
So is it by
and that's the bubble we want to pop, like, the COVID case bubble.
I again, we will see, but is that where this gets a little bit easier and we get this reprieve, and it makes a sharp drop.
Come on, Jupiter.
Yeah. So yeah.
Let's move into Wednesday, December 29th. There's 2 transits here. The first, Mercury conjunct Venus retrograde.
Yeah, they're only going to meet one time, which is sometimes unusual when Venus and or Mercury is retrograding, because they travel so close to one another in the sky. They're both the attendants of the sun, and so they're never. Well, Mercury's never 30. I think it's 38 degrees away from the sun, and Venus is usually about 47 degrees away from the sun. And interesting that they're only going to meet one time in her retrograde. But who needs to hear what you have to say? But remember, if someone needs to hear what you have to say, all right, Mercury meaning the messenger, Venus retrograde going into her, the underworld of trying to find out again who she truly is and who she truly values. And when I say she, I also mean you, men. Right,
the femininity, the feminine side.
That the shoe can be on the other foot, which means you must be ready to hear what they need to say to you. Right? It's not always a one-way trip. So this one pass needs to get to the point. It needs to get to the point. There's no skirting around, or I'm going to test it right now and see how it works. And then when it hits again, I'll say it a little bit more stronger. No, just get to the fact. We've got Pluto. You'll see this by Thursday. Pluto is in the vicinity. You have to be truthful. And if you're not, you're going to get a really big truth serum if you don't face it in the mirror.
Yeah. And the next transit, Mars sextile Saturn, getting serious.
Yeah, it's a great time with these 2 rascals. Again, the rascals here are Mars malefic, Saturn malefic, right? So it's the Mars, the push, is in a fire sign. He's in Sagittarius right now, making a sextile an opportunity to reach out so Mars, the push, the aggressor, the movement forward, is working together, right? Sextile with Saturn. The Saturn, the delayer, the limiter, and they're trying to kind of come up with this way to get along. How do they agree to work together in a supportive way that maybe can move mountains or at least see the mountains, right? Instead
and
of
plan to scale the mountains.
Yeah. So, I do like this. It's not my favorite day because to me, nothing can top the Jupiter into Pisces. But this just means there's a forward movement. There's an effort to along to get.
We love to say like the rubber to the road. It's that energy of Mars, and it's finally creating those differences that Saturn can make.
Yeah, especially for progressive, moving something forward in the long run. Yeah.
So Thursday, December 30th, Mercury conjunct Pluto. More rascals.
Well, the Mercury certainly is meeting up with Pluto. I mean, as I mentioned, Mercury, Venus, retrograde, and Pluto are all linked in together during this period, and it's getting to the bottom. You have to go in. You got to go in. Don't be afraid. In fact, be a green beret, or at least pretend to wear one, where you're unturning mossy rocks, scaly, icky little things. And what? Wait, what? What is that? Could that be a diamond? Oh my gosh, this is odd. I would never have found this down here if I didn't start to get
Uncover.
into the muck, into the moss, into the place that there's something underneath.
Well, and I also like what you said is, that depth of really like going deep into those places. And it just reminded me of, I was watching a show that I've been in love with. It's based in Spain, and it's all Spanish, but there's a English version called Money Heist. And she says to the man, I'm ready to dive in. Is it deep enough for me? So it's just kind of like,
I got goosebumps all over.
Right? Isn't that kind of a cool way of explaining, I'm ready for this? Well, they were talking about a relationship, and she's like, I'm ready to dive in. Is it deep enough? Or are you just surface level right now? And I was just like, awesome. I liked the way that translated.
That's exactly what this is. And I was going to bring up the show that I just recently came across. It was a 30-minute, and it's these three, I don't know if they're Scottish or British or a combination. And I guess they're road car buddies, and they usually go get a car or an automobile of their own
road
choice,
trip,
and they go on a road trip or racing a car or something. Well, the one that I popped into was that now the guy in charge, there's just three of them. He's like, well, we usually get in cars. We're going to get in boats this time.
Oh, okay.
And they're all like, no, I'm not a boater. Like, that's not there's nothing to grasp and, run on. And so they each pick their boats, from one of those cigarette fast speed boats to the
putt-putt
wood, the wood,
like the Italian,
handmade, and the other one got
the luxury ones.
Got a boat that was a replica of a war boat, right? That could just do anything.
Oh, interesting.
And anyway, it was really
interesting. Is this a documentary or this is a show?
It was a show.
Oh,
it was like
interesting.
half hour, 40 minutes. But at one point, and they're on the river in Africa, and they have to go this way, and this route, and get to the ocean. And they get into a stoppage where there's plant growth on top, thick plant growth on top of
the water
for miles and miles and miles. And they're both like all looking at each other, and they're like, we got to go in. And they end up very slowly making a path through
that the rest
miles and miles, and to get to open water. So that's kind of where, but I actually like yours better. Yeah. Like you can get through, but you have to be this green beret of, solid, forceful, powerful. I can do this
right
attitude.
Or you kind of have to be the circus diver that's, going to be diving from very high into a little glass of water. You're not sure if that glass of water is deep enough, but, you do have to try. All right. So let's move on to your astrologically interesting day, Saturday, January 1st, Sun trine Uranus.
Innovate and invigorate. Making these things happen around you and watch them happening without actually having to make them. The trine allows for a harmonious movement and connections. So feel grounded making these daring choices. And what I like about this is the first day of the retreat, because it's about, sun, our identity, what we're shining the light on, what we're identifying with. And a trine says, hey, I want to check this out. And Uranus is saying, hey, this is way different than I would normally. And Uranus is the one of the planets for astrology. So it's kind of like opening up the heart, the mind, the head to gain more information. Now, here's the reason why it's my astrologically interesting day. Part 1. Yeah. At the very end of the month. So we open on the 1st in this trine. At the very end of the month, we get a square. Sun square Uranus.
Okay.
So at the end of the month, this is a square. So there's a little bit of a tension. You may know what starts on the 1st. Like all your resolutions, all your intentions, all your things that you wanted, you'll know if it's happening by the end of the month, because you're going to look at that thing that you thought, oh, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And specifically.
And reality's going to hit.
And reality goes, you really going to do this? And that date is on Sunday, the 30th. So what were you able to do and what were you able not to do, along with what don't you want to do?
And
that you did want to do. Right. How many times has that happened? But here, you guys, you have an excuse. You have an astrological excuse to say, I'm going to try something for a month, and I'll decide at the end of the month if this is worthwhile.
Absolutely, I think that's a great challenge.
Right. Instead of feeling weak or the loss of like, I don't really have it in me to do this, 2-week cleanse, or to go to the gym every day, or 3 times a day, or whatever. I mean, 3 times a week.
That's advantageous.
So anyway, interesting duo here of my astro interesting day, and of course that's listed on the cheat sheet for January, and I'm sure you're going to talk about the cheat sheet thing.
Yeah, well, I might as well just talk about it right now because we're talking about the first of the year. So your challenge for me this past few months was to create a way to get the cheat sheet downloadable by month if they purchase for the full year. And so I did my research, I figured it out, and it is working, and it's ready. So basically what happens is you purchase the full year, you get 10% off, and every single month, as soon as that cheat sheet is ready, it just comes directly to your email. Super easy. You only have to purchase once, so you can, you don't have to worry about going through the checkout process every single time.
I hate those. Click, 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 click. And then all of a sudden the phone rings and click. Okay, never click again. But really should be a gift to yourself for the new year. And if you get it now, January is included.
Right.
So as soon as you buy it, if you haven't yet, we have sold quite a bit of them. And some people are still buying the $10 a month. That is still available.
Right.
So you could go just for specific months that you are interested in, month by month. That's $10, but the entire year is $108, which gets you to save $12. So that's basically a 1 month and 1 week free.
Yeah, yeah, and we love that cheat sheet. There's like some space there for notes if you wanted to mention, for yourself, like, oh yeah, that was happening on that day. It's going to also act as a little astrological journal for you all. So let's move into the next day, Sunday, January 2nd. We have 2 transits here. The first, Mercury ingress Aquarius.
Absorb ideas. And this is at 1 o'clock in the morning. And this has triplicity for night charts, this is in its triplicity, bounds, and decan. So it has quite a bit of strength here. It's able to be in charge of these new ideas, therefore to unlock the old mine, quote, mind. So, as I was saying, unlock the old mind, the old mine. It's the same thing, right?
Right.
You have to change the E to the D. Mm-hmm. And its new ways are surging. New ways are surging forward.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's exciting. That's why
Mercury in Aquarius is like quickening mind, ready for some new innovations, absorbing ideas and sharing ideas.
Yeah,
right.
And I liked in the beginning when I was introing the Mercury ingress Aquarius, you were like absorb ideas.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of a nice way to get creativity, is just by, being a sponge and wanting to gain knowledge from different places, different people, kind of creating it from just what you're open to, I guess.
And too, the Mercury in Aquarius is like not to be afraid to be progressive and to have those thoughts and then speak them or write them or put them to the test. It's actually an very, very interesting week.
Yeah.
In between this Christmas and the New Year's, this period, it's a nice week.
Awesome. Let's start it off.
If we can do all of these things, what do we need to say versus what we're holding back? I know that, it's very important to say what you mean, not in a hurtful way, and there are certain times when you have to not say something and wait for the perfect time, which could be an hour later or, when you're alone with that person and not in a party scenario or on the way home or in the morning,
doing
if
it with
somebody's
grace.
had too much drink and you needed to say something. It's like, you got to wait for it when they are able to absorb that idea.
Have a sober conversation. Yeah. So the second transit of the day, January 2nd, new moon in Capricorn.
12 degrees Capricorn. This is at 12:33 p.m. Central. In step firm on new ground. This moon, it's a new moon in Capricorn, making a trine to Uranus. So the trine again to the Uranus, as I mentioned, on the 1st, we had that sun trining Uranus. Well, here comes the moon swooping in the next day where we get the new moon. Also, the moon is making that trine to Uranus. So activate and energize the new seed pod. Right. There's something, new moon, you're planting a seed, planting a pod. What is in there that is of new species, an original, hybrid. Original, I guess, or hybrid, something that you're planting. It has to be new. And it does, because the things that of 2 years ago, of last year, don't really work so much anymore. So this is on individual basis and the world.
Yeah. And so let's move into Talisman times. It's wide open spaces here. We don't have any finished or none upcoming. However, I do want to take this time to announce January 1st, we have a new Talisman of the month, and that is to release, purify, and restore all that Venus is. And we really like this talisman. Not only is it gorgeous pinks, it's a large bead with crystal bracelet. The affirmation is really beautiful too. And I wanted to share that here. Let me pull it up.
I remember making that talisman. I was in Sedona, and the whole house that, we were there for a retreat, and the whole house got up, put on their blankets. We went outside and watched the Venus come up over the mountains about 4:00 in the morning. She was making her heliacal rise.
And the affirmation, I do exactly what is needed right now. The purification of all waste that weighs me down. I emerge in light and love. And that's the Venus retrograde Cazimi, Sun in the 11th house with Sun as the ruler. So We love that one. It's really beautiful in person.
So there's one of those, and that's on the Talisman of the Month special.
Right, starting January 1st. So if you're listening to this podcast before then, just wait around, or you can purchase it beforehand. But with the Talisman of the Month, you know that you get the talisman at a discount, and there's a $5 shipping credit. Pretty awesome.
And
so
you still get the activation call. With
right,
me.
right, of course.
Same-o.
I also want to just quick announce, because we'll talk about it in more detail, that open for registration is the Venus Heliacal Rise Talisman webinar. That's happening January 15th. So it is up and ready on the website.
Woo-hoo.
That was a task of mine that it was on the top of my list for a while. So now it is out and ready for you all to sign up. And also the Solar Powered Year webinar is available on the website. It is a really wonderful time to set straight your yearly progressions, because the sun hits these degrees at very specific times throughout the year, which happens every year.
Every year.
So if you're curious about that, go ahead, check it out on the website, and we send you your information shortly thereafter. So let's move on to the horizon. Our orbit necklaces are 20% off site-wide. We've been shipping them out. It is ending soon, however, at the end of December. So if you are interested, these are really wonderful presents for the new year. If you weren't able to see your friends or family during the Christmas holiday, then this is a really wonderful time to send them a little something extra that is meaningful and impactful.
And it does, it's a great thing for your new year, right?
Right.
Yeah. Set your sights up, especially for the first of the year.
Speaking of the first of the year, I do have an email that's coming out soon of Sandy's favorite talismans for 2022. Right. However, very similarly, we have the holiday trunk show that we recorded in front of our quote unquote live audience, Zoom live audience. And it's a great video. It has all of the links to the talismans and gift ideas. So if you are needing any type of after the fact presents, or for the new year, right? Yeah. Or for yourself. And within that holiday trunk show, that's when Sandy goes through the meanings of the talismans, why they were created, the astrological meanings. And so it's a really wonderful way to get a little bit deeper and maybe even just a little bit more knowledge about the talismans themselves.
And this trunk show video is free.
Right.
It's information that
you take a look at the charts.
I talked I think about 12 talisman bracelets and went over the chart. Some did sell, but there are certainly some that are still available.
Yep. We did finish up the astrology webinar of the benefics on the move. That's Jupiter and Venus. That's with Sandy and Susan. It's all educational. However, you can personalize it a little bit with an extra $5. Go ahead, head over to the website for that. And we finished the 2022 Astrology Forecast. That is on Facebook now as a recorded video. The link is, of course, in the description if you want to learn more about this year. I will say it looked a little bit challenging. However, it is, a challenge isn't there to knock us down. It's to rise up.
Build us up.
Right, to build us up. So listen in on that. Sandy and Susan are both incredibly inspirational. Susan has multiple mic drop scenarios in it. So it's definitely worthwhile to watch and get an idea of 2022 and suit up. So January 15th, we have our long-awaited talisman ceremony. That is the Venus Heliacal Rising.
Comes in once every 19 months
from
her retrograde cycle.
And this one is in Capricorn, which is every 8 years. Mm-hmm. So, and to this degree, probably never again in our lifetime.
In about a 2-degree area, it stays right. In fact, you'll learn that. The 5-pointed star and how Venus will come back about 1 to 2 degrees
later
lower.
Right.
And that's really the whole Venus star point, which I'll be teaching later on in the year.
Yeah. So, of course, if you want to sign up for that talisman ceremony, the talisman is 2 beads because it is a pair of earrings that have this beautiful sterling silver like cycle type. It looks like one of those, kind of transit circles around the bead, where that bead is also a red rose, absolutely gorgeous, and another symbol of Venus. So it's about that self-worth, about, reevaluating what needed to be burned off in the past and what needs to be enforced, or like really instilled.
And going back to your original authentic self, what it is, who you are on a core level, in all of the old stories or yick or rust or criticisms that people have thrown
that we've attached to, right?
And we have said, okay, that I must own this. Like, no, you don't have to own this. You get rid of it, and you get to become your raw, vulnerable self, to get to be your whole self.
Right. And I think that sometimes those words and those actions or behaviors that we like attune and have stick to us act as like a little barrier around us in our soul, in our spirit. But what we're going to be doing here is tapping into that inside, that like mapley sweetness, that purity that, we all innately have. We're tapping into that self-worth and letting it flow, letting it out, letting it kind of really engulf us in and support us into living in a more Venusian way. Mm-hmm. So really excited about that talisman ceremony.
And in advance, they get
tons of stuff.
Personal papers that you'll print off. Really pretty. Alex will make them always pretty. And I give you the dates and scenarios, some links on what you can expect with Venus going through a particular house in your chart. Where is Venus hitting in your chart during this passage? And I give you dates and links. Well, when I say links, I mean suggestions or scenarios on what that means. And then I'll do about a 5-minute, although, good God, could I ever really do a 5-minute video? An individual 5-minute video for everyone on Zoom that will just be on their personal chart that goes into their email as well. So it's lots of paperwork and a special message from me on Zoom.
Yes.
For you only.
And that's going to be one of our first times doing that. So it's going to be
your idea.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be really great because then you get to keep that personal side, that personal guidance video to yourself, and
to get to an affirmation.
Right. So that's all for On the Horizon. Let's move into our house. Merry Christmas, everyone. Happy holidays. Welcome in. Here's a cup of eggnog. We got some music playing. Probably the Peace Train Christmas version. So we just wanted to discuss our holiday plans. We just early, we celebrated just me and you, our Christmas present fest.
Our dinner, we popped open a bottle of bubbly and built a fire, lit the candles, and made a delicious dinner and shared just downtime and gifts.
And it was so much fun. We laughed hysterically at some of these gifts. My gosh. And so what mainly...
Let's back up. So every year I go to Cincinnati to my mom and my dad, although he passed 3 years ago. And for Christmas Eve, for Christmas Day, for the day after Christmas is the big one that we celebrate at the house. And everybody comes in from all parts of the country. Mm-hmm. It's bigger and bigger. And I had a dream about a week ago. Well, probably 10 days ago at this point. And I woke up in the morning and I sat up and I go, where am I? And I'm like, well, I'm in my room. I know this place, but I laid back down and thought, no, I was somewhere else. And I could immediately access the dream that I was in a backyard. And I don't know the backyard I was in. And there was high fences like wood fences I could not see. But there was every area on the other side of the fence, there was people. And they were partying and nobody could hear me and nobody could see me. And I'm like, where am I that I am? I'm like, oh my God, I'm in quarantine. I am singled.
Quarantine. Christmas quarantine.
And I got very clear message. I am not to go to the party. I am not to go to my Cincinnati Christmas gatherings. I had to sit with it a couple of days because I was like, oh my gosh, this is so sad. And I got the nerve up. I called my brother, called my sister. Well, I first called my mom.
And mainly the whole reason why this was coming up is because you have a retreat for 9 people happening just days after you arrive back from this Christmas festivity.
Right.
Right.
And it was like, I can't jeopardize.
It's an international retreat. It's, you know, if there is any type of COVID that's tested while they're in Mexico, you're in quarantine for 2 weeks, can't come back into the U.S. So, I mean, big responsibility there.
And I just took it on, well, I take it on easily, but then nobody's, you know, not until recently have we had to make some really staunch, difficult end decisions, and that was mine. And I was crying, and I called my mom, and I was really, I mean, my mom's going to be 90 in February, and you know, everybody goes into her house and stays at her house
every year.
And there's this and that, and there's, you know, when you're 90-ish years old, it's like
a lot of hosting.
It's a lot of food. It's a lot of people. It's a lot of waking up at certain times and showers and towels and, you know, this kind of thing. And she welcomes it all. And I thought that, you know, being the oldest, I really was sad to tell her. And you know what she said to me? And I told her the whole scenario that, you know, it's my work. My work is my, you know, unfortunately, is like my number one thing in my life.
Well, no, it's not just your job. It's like your life's work.
I love what I do so connectedly that's all I want to do. And that being the sense where, you know, everybody's paid, everything is paid,
everything's booked,
we're all just now waiting for the time to get on our flights,
right?
That I didn't want to jeopardize anyone's health, my health, or anyone's return to the state. So yeah. And my mom said, Sandy, I want you to lighten your heart.
Right. How
wonderful.
And
that made me cry even
I know.
More. So anyway,
that's such a loving response.
I've told my family, they all know it. I'm quite set with my and prepared. I'm like, this will be fine. We're throwing a 90th birthday party for my mom in February anyway. So,
which is going to be a ball, by the way, because the plans that we have, and have we talked about it on the podcast yet?
Not right now.
Well, right, yeah. Not right now, but soon we will.
And then you wake up this morning.
Right, I wake up this morning, and the day prior, I had kind of a sore throat. I gargled with salt water and all that, and then this morning I woke up and I'm like, uh-oh, it's even worse. So I that is one of the symptoms. You know, so, and I didn't have a fever or anything. It was just that. However, I just did not want to jeopardize an entire, you know, both sides of my family going and visiting, and also jeopardizing my trip to go be with my boyfriend and his family. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to go. I found a place to go get tested for COVID, and it wasn't that. It wasn't strep. And so
you're heading out.
Free sailing, free driving.
Free driving.
And I'm free of COVID.
Well, you never had it. So anyway, that was again, getting to the bottom, you know, not being afraid.
Right.
You know, what do you got to do?
Discovering.
What do you got to do? If I am, I make this decision. If I'm not, I stay on my original plan. So that's really interesting. So,
Yeah.
Your plans stay the same.
Right.
My plans changed, but for the best reasons that I foresee.
Right.
And I'm going to enjoy it. Oh my gosh, I got my cookbook out. I've got some ingredients I'm going to make for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. And then, of course, New Year's Eve, I'll be celebrating in Mexico on the Sea of Cortez.
And it's beautiful. So I think that's a wrap, everybody. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. It's an exciting time. We have this start of this first year going to be absolutely phenomenal and astrologically interesting. So keep up that holiday energy. And we will see you next week, everybody.
Bye-bye.
And so you finally know you control where you go.